This is Hannibal here for the HannibalTV.com, and I'm live with my weekly review of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, which came out last night. There's not a lot of big news this week, so it's going to be a shorter review than normal. In WWE news, to start with, Steve Austin's WWE interview show is returning to the WWE Network starting November 24th, right after Survivor Series, with Austin interviewing The Undertaker. I am a fan of Steve Austin's podcast, so I don't get the network, but those will be interesting to watch. Hey, Brian Rose and Anthony Shabbat. What are my thoughts on Tessa Blanchard? Anthony Shabbat is asking. I think she's good, and I think she's a true heel. Johnny Gargano is out of action with a neck injury. Sorry for the mispronunciation. Man, it's too early. It's 1:50, but it's morning for me. I only woke up about an hour and a half ago. The Miz, who's 39 now, signed a new contract. According to Dave Meltzer, it must be a restructured deal because he signed a 4-year deal last year. Page 27 also signed a new non-wrestling contract, and that was announced on the WWE Backstage show this past week that CM Punk appeared on, that apparently had 100,000 viewers, which was actually it was more than double, because the week before they only had 49,000 viewers. So some people feel that those new contract deals were almost just made to be announced on there, but I don't think so. They want to lock people up for as long as they can. Paige is only signed to a non-wrestling contract. Anthony Shabbat says, did I notice that Scarlett Bordeaux debuted on NXT? I didn't see NXT, but I heard she re-signed, or I heard that she was signed to the company. Yes. Joseph Napolitano is asking about the Rusev-Lana storyline. Well, I already reported on this in one of my daily updates, but it was noted in the Observer that Rusev did an interview with The Sun in the UK, and he said that he's had to adjust his real life a bit because of the storyline, but it's part of the game. And he was quoted as saying, I think it's great. I think we are the best storyline currently going on, and the best storyline that's been around for years. Well, Raw's rating this week was the third lowest rating in the history of Raw. So I wouldn't say it's the best storyline going on in years if that was a feature storyline on the show. And apparently it's been doing well on YouTube, but I heard on the Wrestling Observer radio that one of the reasons why videos like that might get more hits on YouTube than they do as far as actual Raw viewership is because those parts of Raw are actually banned in certain countries. So the only way of people from certain countries of seeing those segments is through YouTube, because it doesn't air on their TV there. Patrick J says Rusev is a bitch. Well, to agree to something like that with your wife, I don't know. I would never do it. I would not do it, not even with a girlfriend, unless it was just like a sex buddy type girlfriend and I didn't really care about it. But I wouldn't be able to stop thinking about her kissing the other guy. So I wouldn't, even if it was just a girl that I was casually having sex with, I wouldn't want her anymore after seeing her make out with another guy numerous times. It would just be a huge turnoff for me. Since getting on TV, neither AEW or NXT has really seen an increase in live show attendance. The Wednesday Night Wars this week saw AEW win again for the 7th week in a row with 957,000 average viewers, while NXT only had 750,000 viewers. And they did use Bayley on the NXT show. I do believe if they would stack the NXT shows with more main roster talent, they could break AEW's streak. I don't know when they're going to start doing this, but I don't know. I think it's going to be longer the longer they wait, because we did see a big increase, or it was the closest margin yet last week when NXT had AJ Styles and Gallows and Anderson on the show. But this week it was only Bailey. From what I understand, there may have been more. But yeah, either way, I'm not interested in watching either show. It hasn't been announced yet, but the belief is Jon Moxley from AEW will be working the Tokyo Dome show in New Japan this year. It is believed that that's going to be the case by people inside of AEW. For the fellow Canadians watching this update, apparently Tony Khan has some interest in running events in Canada, but there's nothing firm on the schedule for coming to Canada anytime soon. Jake Bush says, when do I get a tryout with AEW? Well, as I've told people, Billy Graham, one of the icons in the wrestling business, did an actual video that he put a message out to Cody Rhodes in the video recommending me for AEW, and neither him or I heard anything back from them. I had also sent my wrestling resume to them and never heard back. So at this point in time, they're not interested in me. I don't know. As someone said, they're more interested in the Orange Cassidys and Marco Stunts of the world than people that have actually been paying their dues for like decades. Like I started wrestling in 2001 when I was 17 years old. And I'm also a big guy, intimidating guy, with a lot of intensity, but whatever. I'm enjoying doing my reports, and yeah. In WWE and AEW attendance news, the AEW show November 13th in Nashville, the Dynamite taping this week, drew 4,000 fans. WWE this past week had their largest week of attendance in a long time because they were in Europe. And they started out with a combined Raw and SmackDown taping November the 8th in Manchester, United Kingdom. They had a reported 10,000 people for those combined tapings. So WWE did outdraw AEW for their Raw taping this week compared to Dynamite. So right now, Raw is 4, AEW's 3 in the Raw versus AEW attendance war. WWE was also in Leeds, United Kingdom, November 9th for a Raw house show. They had 8,000 fans. I don't know when the last time they had 8,000 fans for a house show, but that's great for them. November 10th, they were in Aberdeen, Scotland, 3,000 fans for a Raw house show. The 11th, they were in Glasgow, Scotland for a Raw house show. 6,800 fans, another house show number that you wouldn't see in North America. November the 9th, the SmackDown brand was in Minehead, UK. 3,500 fans for that house show, which was a sellout. When was the last time they sold out in North America for a house show? Amazing. And a bit of trivia, I actually wrestled in Minehead, UK for All-Star Wrestling in the UK in 2008. November 10th, SmackDown was in Dublin, Ireland, 6,500 fans. November 11th, SmackDown was in Vienna, Austria, 4,000 fans. There was no real house shows for NXT this past week, but the 13th, this past Wednesday, the taping in Winter Park, Florida, was a sellout with 400 fans. As we all know, at Full Sail, they can only hold 400 fans. And in New Japan, American attendance, they had a show November 11th at the Globe Theater in Los Angeles that drew 529 fans. And I believe PWG normally runs that theater, and they actually get bigger crowds than New Japan had here. I believe it holds a little over 700. So the 529 was not a sellout. A couple questions. Don't Look at My Channel says AEW should hire Mason Ryan and Alex Riley. I've actually wrestled Mason Ryan a lot when I was wrestling in the UK. I don't believe he's wrestling anymore. He has a very thick Welsh accent that think probably hurt him with his WWE push. He did have $1 million physique, and he could take a beating. I remember he wasn't that trained when I was wrestling him, and they were not pretty matches, but they were hard-hitting matches when I was wrestling him in the UK. Joseph Napolitano says, are you a fan of PCO in Ring of Honor? And do I think he has another WWE run in him? From what I understand, his contract runs out in Ring of Honor in December 1st, even though he has a title shot December 18th. He has not re-signed. I've heard that from PCO from the horse's mouth. I believe if you see him go anywhere but Ring of Honor, it'll be AEW, because he did personally tell me that AEW had interest in him last year before he signed his Ring of Honor deal. But at that time, AEW didn't have their Dynamite show, and they were just running shows here and there. So he thought Ring of Honor was a better place for him. Supposedly, he's making triple digits in Ring of Honor, so who knows if he'll re-sign or not. We're going to find out. I haven't actually seen any of his matches in Ring of Honor, only highlights that he's put up on Twitter. So I am a fan of PCO being employed. He deserves it. He's a hard worker. Dwayne Johnson was on Ariel Helwani's talk show this past week talking about this Mark Kerr movie that he's going to produce and put into production starting in 2021. Mark Kerr is a former UFC champion. Johnson will be playing Mark in the movie. Apparently, Johnson is also doing a movie about Anthony Robles, who was born with only one leg and was an NCAA Division I champion. Interesting. Francine from ECW had abdominal reconstruction surgery and hernia repair surgery. So good luck to her in her recovery. I'm actually going to be doing a part 2 shoot interview with Shane Douglas soon. So probably next week when I'm in Philadelphia. In NWA news, their first episode had 546,000 views approximately on YouTube, and it has gone down pretty much every week since. Their current episode has about 151,000 views. So right now, if they're only funding it with YouTube money, maybe combined for all their episodes, if you put all the money together, they might have made enough to pay for one of the wrestlers' flights on the show. But of course, it is Billy Corgan funding that, and he's a multi-millionaire. So good for him for putting that together. They should put Hannibal in there against Nick Aldis. I could easily defeat him and take that title. In MLW news, apparently Tom Lawler has left the company, but he's still being advertised for their February event. I received their media notifications, and he is on the publicity for their February event, so maybe that's a mistake. But according to the Observer, he's finished with the company. We were just talking about Ring of Honor news. Other wrestlers whose deals are up other than PCO in the next few months are Marty Scurll, Brody King, Jeff Cobb, and Bandito, who's their current champion. A lot of people feel that Scurll will probably end up in AEW unless ROH makes him a big offer. UFC news, they had a show November 9th in Moscow, Russia, that drew a sellout of 11,305 fans. The Russian fighters went 5 wins and 8 losses on that show. Nate Diaz did an ESPN interview where he said that he's probably not going to fight again, but if he did, he would like to fight George Masvidal at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. Gilbert Melendez, who is 22-8, 37 years old, who's lost his last 5 fights in the UFC, has been released from his contract. Dana White's going to be one of the executive producers of the new ABC TV show called Ultimate Surfer. Promoter Eddie Hearn said the November 9th Logan Paul versus KSI YouTuber boxing match was the most purchased pay-per-view event of the year in the UK, even beating Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz Jr. So I've also heard that YouTuber fight, which I haven't seen yet, one of my gym buddies told me I really should watch it and do a review on it. I guess it probably had over 1 million total buys, which is great considering like WWE for their average pay-per-views is like getting just over 10,000 for many of them. For their bigger pay-per-views, obviously they're doing better than that. AEW has been getting, I think, around 100,000 or just under 100,000. So yeah, to get for YouTubers in the main event to get over 1 million pay-per-view buys, and the official number hasn't even been released yet. That's pretty amazing. Also, apparently Ken Shamrock is mad at me over me not approving of his the way Impact Wrestling is using him with the Joey Ryan stuff. I might do an individual video on that. I don't feel he should be mad at me over that. It's just an opinion, but I'll do an individual video over that. Finally, this is pretty impressive. Penn State's wrestling team has been selling out 49 events straight, which is amazing. They opened their season this past week, selling out their rec hall with 6,490 fans, which is amazing for amateur wrestling. And yeah, that's their 49th straight sellout. So that's amazing. Amateur wrestling in Canada does not get crowds like that for college wrestling. I did have a University of Buffalo Division I amateur wrestling scholarship offer out of high school. I chose to go right into pro wrestling, but that is one of my biggest regrets in life, that I never wrestled D1. All right, guys, I'm off to Albany later today to interview Hillbilly Jim tomorrow. So I'm checking out for now. Have a great weekend, everybody.